You're with Julian on the Brown Notes and a review of Adolescence, the, for some reason, #1 television show in the world at the moment, which is very odd considering it is a broadly art house, low budget-ish proposition, a very, very difficult show to watch, which is shattering. And somehow it has become a lightning rod. I think the biggest, like now that it's so big, it's attracting people that think it's threatening them. So if you ever see stuff online about how it's race swapping, a knife crime in the UK, this isn't true. It's about young men online becoming radicalized. It happens to be a knife crime in this film. It isn't about one case. They list many cases which inspired it, many with white perpetrators. It isn't even about knife crime. It's about what happens to young men when they're in the manosphere or under the influence of bad faith actors like Andrew Tate, and how they develop very toxic views on women and relationships. It's a joint production between the very esteemed actor that absolutely everyone loves, Stephen Graham, who started for most people in Snatch, but has since gone on to be an absolute go-to actor. Whether it's an hour-long... funnily enough, this is actually famously done in one take, each episode, but whether it's... he did the film Boiling Point, where it was a 2-hour in one sequence film about him being a chef, whether it's being an American gangster in The Irishman, which is very funny, opposite Al Pacino, the two arguing all the time. A very versatile actor and a very intense actor that's often in very difficult material. Him and the other co-creator were Jack Thorne, and it was directed by Philip Barantini, and it revolves around the character of Jamie Miller, who's a 13-year-old boy accused of murdering one of his classmates with a knife. It's done in a very interesting style, which is that each of the 4 episodes, it's almost like a mini version of The Wire. Like the 4 episodes are all done in a different place, and they're all featuring broadly different casts. So some of the casts appear in 2 episodes and not the other 2, and so on. So there's an overlap with cast members, but often there's different people in each episode and different environments. And the other big artistic conceit is that it happens over an hour. So the first hour of the event we see in real time, and then we jump forward a day, and then we jump forward 7 months, and then we jump forward 13 months. I think it's 13 months. So the opening is with Ashley Waters as D.I. Luke Bascom and Faye Marsay as D.S. Misha Frank, who are having an idle chit-chat on the pavement as British police. And the whole thing is like a very intense... It builds up into this very intense raid on a house. And the amount of police and SWAT team, British SWAT team people involved tells you that it's an extremely serious crime, which makes it very confronting when they kick the door down on a 13-year-old boy who wets his pants. The first hour is a police procedural. The rest of the show is not. So there's also a group of people that probably come to this thinking it's the best crime drama. Wait, what is this rubbish? It's not a crime drama, and it's not a police procedural. That one episode is the only police procedural you're going to get. And we follow the shocked family, the dad, Stephen Graham, and the son, played by Owen Cooper, being taken down to the cells, being read his rights, being appointed a lawyer. And the whole way through, you probably won't be surprised now what happens, but the whole way through you're thinking this angelic, intelligent, articulate, quite feeble 13-year-old boy is obviously not guilty of what's happened. The whole thing has a real, like the use of the hour-long format where it's supposedly taken in one take, and It's clearly not, and I think the times are compressed to a degree to show more of what happens that wouldn't be realistically possible. But the technical expertise of making it feel like that, with a multi-camera setup and just feeling like you're basically a ghost in the room floating around these events as this very confused family deal with the police. And the fact that D.I. Luke Bascom is so confident, it really does sort of unnerve you. And he's appointed a court-appointed lawyer before they even know what's happened. It's an incredible opening episode. I think this is one show you just desperately do not want to be getting up in the middle of an episode. It is so from point to point, and it's very gripping, that first episode, and very unnerving. And it all comes to a head when he finally does interview the Jamie character. And he starts walking through, these your mates, they're on Instagram and so on. I notice you like these girls' posts on Instagram. Some of these comments that you've left are quite violent, aren't they? And it's like this gradual drip, drip, drip. Now, there's no giveaway in saying he did it. It's not about who done it. It's about why. And by the end of the episode, we get this very sort of shocking sequence where he just basically shows him doing it. And we're left with this incredible aftertaste of, yeah, he actually did do it. And the rest of the show is finding out why. There's some important points in this show which I think they made correctly. Normally you complain, say, the female victim, one of his classmates, who was stabbed to death in a car park quite clearly on camera by this 13-year-old. She's given no agency in this story at all, and that might have been a problematic point, but I totally get it, which is the fact that had they shown her, it would have become about her. It would have become a bit more about her behaviour. Did she inspire this? And she would have become a real person. She's supposed to be every girl. There was no reason for this to happen to her, so don't give people reasons to it. And it's about the boy. It's about what actually motivated him. What were the forces working on his life? It's an outstanding opener. And the next episode move on to the school, where they actually walk through the school, which is, I would say first and third episodes are the top two. And this would be the third best. It's still outstanding. The primary takeaway from that episode, when they go through the school and they talk to the teachers and they see the behaviour of the pupils, is there's a massive disconnect between adults and teenagers, between the police, the parents, and the teachers. There's just an absolute gulf in understanding what the kids are going through, as well as in school, a total lack of control. You would watch that episode and never, ever agree to send your child to a school like that. And yet, I was very shocked by the fact that I recognised the school, but not the brutality. It wasn't like that when I was at school. The level of bullying, all of it through online activity like Snapchat and Instagram, and all of this bullying was going on online, and the lack of control that the adults had over the kids, who had no connection with the adults that were teaching them at all. And the whole thing being about, here's a class, press play on a video and yell at them to stop looking at their phones was the entirety of the teaching. Throughout the course of that episode, we learned that a couple of his friends were a little bit more involved than they'd let on. But again, it's not a whodunit. It's really an episode to examine how big a gulf there is between teenagers that have only grown up online and the adults that are shepherding them around with absolutely no idea what's going on in their heads. It's a very powerful episode as well. It's not as good as the opener, but it is still absolute top tier. We then get to so we've lost Stephen Graham and Owen Cooper, who as the dad and the son in that episode. We get Owen Cooper back for the best episode, and one that will be your all-time Hall of Fame episode, which is just Owen Cooper and Erin Doherty as Bryony Ariston, who is a court-appointed psychologist. So we jump forward 7 months, and she's there to evaluate him. Because he's so young, and to establish, they have to have 2 psychological examinations of the patient over a few meetings to try and define who he is, what he understands about what he's done, and all of this. There's like one main other person involved. I'll go back to episode 2. There are so many Easter eggs, I hate that term, throughout this show, which I found very interesting, and I just remembered one of them. So I was going to go back to it, but Ashley Walter's character is the cop that goes to the school. He's a very confident, good-looking, charismatic guy. His son is at the school and the subject of bullying. He's the opposite of his dad. And it's mentioned by some of the throwaway stuff that the kids say, such as a couple of the kids comment on the disparity between him being an alpha male, being someone that girls would naturally like, and his own son, was very telling as to where their hierarchy defines your place, which I thought was really good. I'll move on because I'll be going for 45 minutes. Erin Doherty is this court-appointed psychiatrist, and other than one other main character, it's just them in a room. This episode has amazing camera work for just 2 people sitting across the table. The direction and the camera work in this series is exceptional throughout. I mean, the way they follow the police through the school, going through windows, they have all these tracking shots, and you're behind them and you're in the room and you're circling them, all done in real time, is amazing. To have just 2 static people in a room and to actually have the cameras circling in a manner that heightens the scenes is incredible. And throughout that immortal episode of television, the brilliant performances of Owen Cooper and Erin Doherty, she is trying to get to the bottom of who he is, what he thinks about women, how does he think about sex, what does he think about relationships, to try and get an understanding of who he is. And you think that it would be a dull watch. It is shattering stuff. It goes through these long periods of him getting prickly, getting asked questions, subsiding, rising up, then getting absolutely enraged, and her maintaining this incredible control over him. Both actors would be awards worthy from this all-time Hall of Fame great TV episode. And there are many, many shocking truths that come through as she peels back what's gone on in his life. And I thought one of the most crushing elements was it's posited that this girl was in fact bullying the kid. But what we find out is he had asked her out and she had told him no. What had really been going on behind the scenes is she'd been subject to what's called slut shaming. She'd had nude pictures of herself shared throughout the school, and she'd become the subject of mockery. And the really heartbreaking thing is the Jamie character asked her out, not because he liked her, but because he had been taught the 80-20 rule, which is mentioned by several of the students, which is 80% of girls like the top 20 alphas % of men. So you have to trick and manipulate girls to go out with you. So he believed because she'd been shamed by the whole school, she'd be so low, she would say yes to him. And that sort of went to the center of what this whole world gives these kids, because he could not have had a lower opinion of himself. And they mention throughout episodes 2 and 3 about incel culture and this whole online thing about red pill and blue pill and the manosphere and the abuse going backwards and forwards between the boys and girls, and the lowest thing you can be is a virgin incel, and how the only way you won't be is if you learn all of these techniques to abuse girls into going out with you. It's pretty grim, but one of the best episodes of TV I think has ever been made. If there's a downside to this show, I think it's half fair and half not. I think episode 4, after 3 immaculate episodes, is in some ways the weakest. I think like the final half hour of the show, where it's the parents coming to terms with the fact that it's their boy that's done all of this stuff, and it being done in a more expository way and than the naturalism of what occurred before. I think that's, like, in some ways that's the weakest, but it's also amongst the most important, because we arrive at the place where we understand there's like these sort of moments thrown out there. Is Stephen Graham's violence and anger responsible for what happened to his boy? The parents keep saying, well, we must be responsible, we made him, and so on. But that whole period is a very important one, because it shows you the parents aren't to blame. Yeah, he's a bit gruff and he loses his temper, but he's a really good man, and you're shown that the family is really nice and love each other. It's what happens when they thought he was safe in his room that has led him to this point. And that's a really important part to end on. But I thought the first half hour where someone spray paints his van and he ends up going to like the hardware shop to get paint, and actually has a boy approach him saying about how much of a hero his son is. And then the confrontation in the car park was a half an hour as electric as anything, and maybe even the best half hour of Stephen Graham's performance in the whole thing. So I don't think writing off that fourth episode is fair. I think the final half hour is weaker when it comes to the naturalism of the dialogue being replaced by stuff you'd expect to see a bit more, them talking about, why did this happen and so on. And also the fact that it doesn't offer answers will be a reason for people who are used to police procedurals ending on a guilty verdict or something like that. That will be hard for them to take. So overall, I was going to give it a slightly lower score, but I'm going to give Adolescence a 9.5 out of 10. And I'm factoring in the weaker elements of episode 4. I think that you have to factor in the incredible technical achievement of the director and camera people of being able to create this hour-long world. It's a very immersive watch. It's a very difficult thing to have achieved. And then you have to factor in acting as you'll ever get, as good as you'll get on television. Being able to act in those free-flowing hour-long sequences can't have been easy to capture at all. And the fact that it is a lightning rod for a very serious issue in society, that is something that, it offers the notion that adults don't know how to deal with this at all. We've got no answers. So overall, it's an important landmark TV show with some outstanding episodes. I would say 2 are off the charts outstanding. 1 is outstanding nearly, and the last one is often outstanding. Added to that, the technical complications and achievements on display in the acting and the subject matter and its impact, I'm going to give it a 9.5 out of 10 for Adolescence.